Hi, Sabrina. Yee!
Hello.
Hello. Why do you have a weird look on your face? Explain face. Please?
Okay. Melody, I don't know if I can keep doing podcast. Do you want to know why?
What? Why?
I'm sure you want to know why. All right. I'll tell you why. It's because when I was listener,
yeah,
I know I told you about this, how I went through a phase where, like, I read along with y'all, but then
Yeah.
I fell out of that because I'm a mood reader, right?
Sure.
When I was not reading along with y'all,
Yeah.
y'all would read something amazing and love
Yes.
it to fucking pieces. But if
Yeah.
I did not read book, I did not feel impulse to read every fucking thing that author had ever written.
Uh-oh. Sabrina in trouble.
Now,
Yeah?
my TBR, which was already fucking out of control,
No, now it's fucked.
as you well know, Melody, I can't just pop in on the second book in a fucking series.
No, so you read the first one already, right?
I have binge read the first book, the first 1.5 novella, and now the second book, and I've already gotten the next 3 books from the library because I was terrified somebody else would come take them before me and I'd be stuck on hold.
Listener, I just need listener to understand where I'm coming from into this conversation, okay?
Melody, how the fuck are we supposed to do an episode on this book and not quote the whole fucking thing? I'm 2 chapters in and horrified at how many highlights I have. It's just so funny and like witty, smart, and damn it.
Those are the voice notes I have gotten recently.
Yeah, I had to stop voice noting you because I was like, we have to save this for pod. But unfortunately for Melody, she's getting the news that this is her last episode.
Last episode.
So
Sabrina doesn't have time to read any of the books on the next reading list because she is going to be in an Eloisa James rabbit hole.
And I can't believe I've never read Eloisa James before. Like,
This is also my first.
oh my god, goddess, goddess, it's a problem.
No, it's a big problem. Actually, this is the reason
catalog.
she has a back catalog that will break your back
I know.
in so many different ways. I just realized that works.
Melody, like, this book broke me. Like, so, like, it's just such a problem because, like, now I have Kayla Rain and Meg Ann that I'm working my way through all of their stuff. Now I have Eloisa James. I'm working my way through all of their stuff.
Yeah.
And, like, I can't even think of other authors off the top of my head because when I tell you that the only thing I can think about right now is Eloisa James.
And I will have you know, listener, that before we started this book, she was like, I'm a little worried. I'm really not in the mood for historical. Turns out you live there now. You've gotten the way back machine.
The problem is, like, if something really gets me, then, like, that's how the mood switches. You know? Like, something sounds good, and then the mood, and then now the mood. I have orcs to read. I have paranormal to read. I have so many things that, like, we kind of have a break on reading for the next couple of weeks, and so I was like, look at all of these things I mean, jokes on fucking you, Sabrina.
Jokes on you.
Jokes on you. Because
it's just
now
sleep isn't for you.
Huh?
No more sleep for Sabrina.
Sleep has to be for Sabrina.
I hear you.
Sabrina does not function without sleep.
Yeah, same.
But anyway, yeah, so it was really nice having a podcast with you. That was a fun rebrand. And I really hope that we...
now.
Yeah, we stay friends. Now that I've ditched you for Eloisa James, my new true love.
Wow.
Christ.
I really thought I meant a tiny bit more to you than that.
I'm so sorry, but Eloisa James means more than a lot of things in my life right now.
She's stolen your heart.
Like, and you don't even understand because, like, the first book and a half, like... Oh my god, Melody!
Are you gonna tell me about that for Patreon?
I can.
Okay, I would like that.
It's gonna be... I did not take any notes because I fucking drank that shit like a...
No,
man who's been in the desert.
No,
Because
it'll
his
just be a
horse with no
squeep-isode.
name abandoned him.
I
like,
love
I'm
that
lost
song.
in the desert. I
I hear that.
song.
I hear that.
Yeah,
No,
absolutely.
but it can be a squeep
Because
episode.
guess what? By the time we get around to fucking recording that episode, I'll have finished the fucking series.
I'm sure
so,
of it.
like, cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. Great.
The terror that I am currently seeing in Sabrina's eyes right now, listener.
I may have read 2 Eloisa James' series by the time we record. And then it's just going to be chaos. I'm going to be like, I don't know what happened. I'm going to be looking at synopses and just...
Look, man, as long as you have time for Crescent City and Iron Flame, I'm good.
You're going to be so lost.
I don't know. Turns out my library has a metric fuck ton of her audiobooks. So
Yeah.
I might not be super lost. Because it was a fun read. And it also,
my God.
murdered me to death.
How the fuck? All I could think, I got 15% in this book, and I went, how the we have done this to ourselves, where now we actually put out, like, this episode comes out this day kind of shit, which means that, like, 2-parters don't fucking exist anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. That was your idea, I'll have you know.
I know! And
I'm just putting it on the record.
How the fuck? Yeah, because, like, listener likes to read along sometimes. I was that listener.
I hear you. I know.
But,
I'm
like,
getting... One of the
how are
great
we gonna
things
This
is...
what's gonna happen is we're gonna have to fucking what's that other book? I don't even remember other book names anymore. The Dragon Book.
The Dragon Book? Oh, yeah.
Fourth Wing.
Yeah.
Like, we're gonna end up having the sweep episode is gonna be because you and I are about to fucking blow through this bitch like our pants are on fire.
Yes.
And then our sweep episode is going to be me telling you about books, but it's also going to be you and me talking about all the shit that we missed out on.
Oh, the squeep episode is going to be Sabrina and I reading you the rest of the book.
The amount of fucking highlights is unholy.
I know. Yeah.
Unholy.
After I got that voice note from you, I was like, okay, so I can't take notes because I need to be the person that accidentally motors past whatever Sabrina is going to say. Otherwise, she's going to read every highlight.
Oh my God, did you not take notes?
No, I didn't because of this.
You want to know something chaotic?
Yes.
Okay, so this is another thing. This is actually another tangent, but get ready. So I got a new phone today, right?
Yeah.
So...
We were supposed to test something earlier.
Well, I figured it out that it works, but get ready for what kind of phone I got.
Oh, shit.
Yo, bitch has a flip phone again.
Whoa, but it's a smart one.
Yes, but the reason I'm excited about it is because it's like a solid inch taller than my old phone, which means I can, let me show you, this is going to mean nothing to listener, I'm so sorry, listener. You're just going to have to come on Patreon and watch the video if you want to know that much. Check this puppy out. Check this puppy out. Woof. What the fuck? The coolest shit that's ever happened to me. So, I realized that it's tall enough
that
I can have... God damn it,
Can you put it on an angle?
Well, I can
you prop
but
it?
I can have book and then my Google Keep notes down here. Which means instead of highlighting and taking notes that way, I can just tap down here, do a voice to text message, and then go right back to book.
Holy shit.
Which is like, that's what I've been wanting, but I didn't want to have to like flip back and forth between apps. But now I don't have to because my fucking phone is tall enough to hold all of it. I have a bag of holding as a phone. My life is about to be changed. My notes are going to actually make sense, and it's not going to be just 265 highlights, some of which are literally
pages.
Like pages of like I had to stop. Okay, so let's just fucking jump in. Anyway,
let's go.
On one hand, listener, basically too long didn't listen. My life is simultaneously the best it's ever been, and I'm the happiest that I've ever been, but it's also ruined. I am a ruined woman.
Oh my God, just like
person.
Just like Lynette.
Yeah.
Linnet's ruined, y'all.
I didn't even have a dock for my light frigate to dock in.
Your light frigate didn't dock a single place.
I know.
What is that about? Oh my god, the amount of times. Okay, one of my favorite things that this book did in general. So we've got Linnet. She's young. She's ruined. Yeah,
not a single thing about it that wasn't perfect.
All of it.
Mm-hmm.
But we've also got. Oh golly, what's his name?
Piers.
Why?
Proofric?
Piers. Thank you, Jesus. So one of my favorite things is before they meet each other, we get some of their perspectives because they're like super far apart. And we get that Piers has this butler who is just
Proofric. Proofric. Prefric.
Yes. Yeah.
I don't know how you pronounce it.
Yeah, I forget how the audiobook pronounced it. Doesn't matter. Yeah, he's like a little bit, he's a little sassy, and he doesn't act like a normal butler, but...
Because he's a spy.
Because he's a spy for his dad.
Not that that was ever confirmed.
It totally was. It was by he himself. So, in one of the very first scenes we get of the hero, he says, "My butler isn't like a butler at all, but and I know he's a spy, but I like his sassy personality so much that even with those two things, I refuse to fire him." And meanwhile, in her scene, she's having a scene with like her governess or, you know, her chaperone or whatever, where the chaperone's like, "You don't know how to be a lady." Her companion. And her making like boat in dock jokes. It's so
worry.
good.
They're highlighted.
Oh yeah. No, I know. Okay, so Linnet's been fucking ruined. It's her first season, y'all. And she
heard those titties are just too tittying to be contained.
God, they're just everywhere in the best ways. And she has caught the eye of a prince, okay? And everybody knows it. Everybody has seen this Bonnie prince following her around like a puppy for 2 whole months. And then one day she wore a dress she basically had like a Kelly Clarkson moment where like she's just wearing a shirt that billows a bit and all of the tabloids are like, "Is she pregnant?"
Yeah, and she also vomited in a plant last week because of a bad prawn, and everyone's like, "Oh, well, she's in the family way." I'm sorry, what was it? Never mind, I'm not even gonna fucking pretend that I can speak French.
Is what, because I'm not a lady. Her dad's like, "Oh, don't say anything so..." Ugh.
And like the prince was such a dick about it. So like, to be clear, this is how the book opens, and it's basically her being like, "Well, shit. Okay, the prince fucked me over because he did not tell, like, he was like, sorry, I can't marry you," because apparently he's been married before and then left her and divorced her.
No, his dad forced him, so he's like, "I can't even bring up the idea of marrying you because I know that my dad will say no." But people have already seen them kissing, and now this dress makes her look 4 or 5 months pregnant, and so the entire ballroom, he's like, "I'm so sorry, I can't marry you. Goodbye, darling," and walks out of the ballroom, and then the entire ballroom turns their backs. She says, "An entire ballroom gave me a cut direct."
Not sure that's ever happened before. It's like, yes. Yeah, I did find my light frigate comment or quote, and it's this is the companion talking to her. "A light frigate, a light woman." Isn't a frigate a boat? Exactly. The type that docks in many harbors. And then poor heroine, Lynette, later, a couple of paragraphs later, because I could literally only go a couple of paragraphs without highlighting something, it's a problem.
Fair.
She was like, "Even a very young light frigate should have the chance to dock at one's harbor before she's scuppered."
That's right.
She's a ruined virgin.
And the lady's like, "Are you making boat jokes?" She's like, "It's a very funny boat joke. What do you want from me?"
Oh no, she was pissed. She was like, I don't make jokes. Oh, she was we had, never mind, I'm not going to say that.
No, Lynette said it's a very funny joke, basically. So like, get over yourself.
It was a funny joke.
It was very funny. So, listen, her dad and her aunt decide that the only way to fix this is to try to get her married to a duke's son who is impotent, but the duke needs an heir. And so there is one of those around. Meanwhile, this scene is incredible because they keep on going back and forth between whether she is pregnant or whether she isn't pregnant, depending on like where, you know, the trajectory of their argument is going. And one of the biggest reasons that she's been shunned so hard is because of her family history with her mother.
Yeah, because her mother was a hell of a light frigate.
She was the lightest frigate that has ever frigged. She
was-
frigged a lot. Okay.
She was docking in some ports.
She knew all over the place. And apparently all of the women in their family are notoriously beautiful. And they've got this family
Sensual.
smile. Things I don't understand, but they're just like hot from across the room or whatever. And because of that, so with her mom and her dad knew that she was cheating on him all the time. But he just loved her so much that he kind of looked past it. And she ended up dying while on her way to an assignation in a carriage while it was raining. And it's
Yeah.
really sad.
We've had a lot of death by carriages in the rain in the last couple of months.
I mean, I figure it was pretty dangerous. Like on a good day.
Yeah, on a good day. Yeah, you're not wrong.
So... Anyway,
then-
she's like, everybody's like, okay, we're going to go set this up, and then you've got 12 hours to get pregnant. So, go fuck that prince.
So she doesn't. She gets in the carriage and tells the footman to just, like, let her take a nap and trolley around the city, essentially. Trolley around the park.
And this was interesting to me. I don't know how you feel about this. When she was saying that one of the reasons she was flirting with the prince so much is because she actually has very little interest in men in general and very little interest in physical contact.
This is not unspoken demisexuality.
Yeah. Oh, yes.
I will swallow my tongue.
Agreed. No, agreed. I will
And
light
she
myself
likes
on
them-
fire.
She likes them sharp
Yes.
and crass
Yes.
and witty.
And a teensy bit rugged.
Completely unsympathetic.
Absolutely.
And now we're gonna go meet the Earl, the son of
Who
the
is
Duke.
all of those things, it turns out. What?
Okay, so I've never even seen this show. I've not even seen a single episode of the show in my life, but did this Earl not remind you of House?
Okay, I'm so glad. Eloisa James made it very, very clear. And that's immediately who I thought of when we met this guy.
Within a
and
page.
then in the historical note, Eloisa James is like...
I haven't read the historical note yet because I literally finished and got on pod. So I'm
Yeah.
full of piss and vinegar right now.
She is. I love it. No, so yeah, Eloisa James modeled him completely after House.
Awesome. Well, this fucking Earl is sexy as shit, and like from the
Sexy
get,
as shit.
like he's such a dick, and I love him. So, oh my god. Okay, so we meet the Duke in his point of view, or like it's not really like in point of view; it's third person all the way through, but it is still like from their perspective.
Earl.
It's but like I'm just saying like throughout the book, so it's not like it is their point of view, but it's also not exactly you know what I mean. You've all read a fucking historical in third person, so well maybe not all of you. But you should read this one.
Think about reading this one, y'all.
It's so good.
It's so good.
Oh my god. So anyway, so we show up in he's a doctor, right? He's a physician. But what he really is a post-mortem dissector.
He's a diagnostician and an anatomical dissector. And a lot of times, like, he realizes that there's not much he can do. He can only find out what's wrong with the patient after they're dead. So, you know,
so he works with his cousin Sebastian, who is an actual, like, surgeon and can, like, work on them when they're alive.
Yeah, so Piers is, like, dark and broad and, you know, grrr. And Sebastian is, like... He's blonde, and he's a bit more willowy, and he's very affable.
Literally, the minute it was being described as this is my
fiance,
I was like, nope, honey. That's
absolutely
definitely not your fucking fiance.
It's the best. I love that. Because I love that when they're like, oh, this is my fiance. He's so hot. Look at how, wonderful he is and how social and blah, blah, blah. And then she's like, and then some blowhard interrupts to be like, you're all stupid. And she's like, who is that awful man? That's your fiance, love. That's him. Yep.
Yeah. So, and yeah, it's just delightful. So we've skipped a little bit of stuff, but we don't have a choice. So moving along.
We don't have a choice.
So they meet, and she has tied a pillow around her middle to pretend that she's pregnant, because she's like, I'll give it 2 weeks until I tell him. And then immediately they're walking away, and he's like, you're not pregnant. I already know that. Like,
yeah. What's this
we
about
already
then?
know that. By the way, they have already acknowledged that each other is a sexy person. Like, immediately. Yeah. Like, she's like, why am I so intrigued by this man? Interessante.
And he thinks she's a sexy woman, as in somebody he would never be attracted to.
Uh-huh.
Like, he's like, I'm not attracted to any of that. I don't understand. And it's not until she starts giving him shit and showing her wit and, all of, and her backbone, that he's like, oh, uh-oh, I might be in trouble.
So they're meandering. One of my favorite things is she's like, well, he's like, clearly you're not pregnant. And she's like, okay, you're right, I'm not. And he's like, so how are we supposed to, like, what? You're going to marry me and then, like, lose the baby or, like, something like that? And she's like, don't fret. I'm sure I can solve our little problem once we're married. Wales is likely full of strapping lads ready to do their lord a favor.
And
this
then
is also when
keeps
we find out. Oh
no, he keeps on walking in front of her, is all I was gonna say.
Oh yeah.
And it's so great because she says something. She asks him if he thinks something's boring. I don't remember what it was, but then he goes, "No, why do you ask?" And she's like, "Well, I think that shoulders are boring. So, like, maybe slow the fuck down."
She has to. Corridors were boring.
Are corridors boring to you?
Oh, and one of the best part is she gives him her patented, she's been holding out on smiling at him, but then she gives him the patented, like, sensual smile, and he's like, is that the best that you've got?
She's like, kinda. Yeah, it works on literally everyone.
Yeah.
Not this guy.
No, nope,
so he's
not
like,
at all.
I'm not marrying you. And she's like, yeah, it seems like we don't really suit, do we? Like, okay. I mean,
all right.
I guess we can table it for now, she says, basically.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
This is also when we find out that he goes swimming daily in a cold fucking ocean pool because...
Which is based on I don't know if it's a real thing. Sorry, go ahead. No, go ahead. I lost it. It's fine.
Okay. Well, if it comes back, I'm intrigued. But he does it every day because he isn't limited by... I mean, it's the reason that water therapy hurts for people, right? So, like, he has a bad leg.
Yeah, I just realized we didn't tell them the pivotal thing about him. That he has a big injury.
Yeah, and he's had it since we learned that he got it when he was 6 years old. And actually, I'm just gonna go ahead and give you this information right now because we do not have the time to get on this as it happens. So he was injured by his father because his father was a laudanum addict. Or an opium addict, same difference. And so when he was in a opium daze, he threw his son into a fireplace that was not lit, but it fucked up Pierce's leg forever. But it had a big pokey thing in it,
I'll tell you that much.
And so he and his mom left for good. Like, he has not seen his father in 26 years, and he's 32 now. Like, he has not seen his father since then. And this is his father kind of trying to, like, sneak his way, or not sneak.
Mend fences.
Yeah.
But have a reason to be there. So his mom and he left primarily to go find doctors that could help him because they didn't want what his injury actually is like an atrophied quadricep muscle. So he experienced muscle death right there, but it's like chronic pain for the rest of his life. He walks with a cane, and it's really, and he has told his dad that the injury also made him impotent. And so she's going to this marriage being like, this is great. I hate it when men put their tongues in my mouth. So a husband who can't do it sounds incredible. I spent the first, I don't know, 40% of this book being like, why is everyone so phallocentric other than the fact that it's historical times? But it ends up being fine. Anyway, while he and his mom were gone, his dad got super, super vindictive and spread rumors all over England being like, my wife ran away with a gardener. She's a trollop. She's the biggest harlot that's ever happened. And so
because
this is the reason that I'm going to divorce.
Those days to get divorced.
Yeah. So it's, it's all bad.
Yeah.
Anyway, go ahead.
And then we also, at one point, I'm bringing it up now because I think it's adorable. We meet the 3 students who are not students. Piers is very determined that they're not medical students, but also, like, they're totally medical students. But she starts calling them the ducklings because they follow Piers around like he's a little god.
Yeah. Well, and I don't know. Okay, so I read this in audio, and so I need you to tell me what their actual names are, because I heard that 2 of them were Kibbles and Bits.
Yep.
Okay. What was the other one, though?
Penders.
Penders.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. It made me laugh every time.
He's also already registered that he does, like, he's starting to get a little bit jealous. So, like, because she does the smile at Sebastian, his cousin. She does the smile at all of the ducklings. That's just what we're going to refer to them as. Yeah. And all of them are melting.
They're falling over themselves.
Immediately melting. Yeah. Like, it is
the only reason they don't fall all the way over is because their boners are holding them up. Like, it's real weird over there. And Sebastian is like, don't worry about my cousin. I will marry you right now. And he's like making no qualms. He's like, let's go.
We find out, like, we already know that she fucking hates that. She really likes that Piers is a fucking asshole.
Yeah.
He does not take any of her shit. Y'all, listener, I need you to read this book because, like, I have literally already passed by so many fucking highlights of, like, their witty banter back and forth. Like,
there is so
it's
good.
so good because she takes no shit and he gives all of the shit.
And he loves that she doesn't take his shit because all of his staff are terrified of him except the butler, and that's the only reason he doesn't fire the butler, remember? Mm-hmm. Like, oh, it's so good. So yeah, he says
and he's
while
already
they're
been
walking
told multiple times from the butler, the butler's like, prefers like, you are not allowed to scare off anybody else because we can't keep getting people to get hired here, dude.
Yeah, like there's a limited amount of scullery maids in Wales, you fuck. So
unshocking because they got the new footman Nathan, and immediately before anything else, fucking Piers has a whole conversation about how the history of Nathan's name comes from somebody who had their head
Saint
chopped
Nathan.
off, but who could still walk around. And he's like, well, I guess I could just, like if you did get sick, chop you up, and you could just still walk home and get buried there. We don't need a cemetery after all. And Nathan's just like,
yeah, Nathan's like, I just got here. Well, so while they're walking around, he tells her about this pool. And it's like literally cut out of the rocky cliff. And so the high tide brings in water, and then at low tide, it also, like, it all goes out and the pool empties. So he's like, you can come swimming with me. And she goes, oh, ladies don't swim. And he's like, well, you're ruined, so it really doesn't matter now, does it? And she's like, actually, that's a really good point. I'm fucking ruined. Like,
she
this opens up
freedom in being a ruined woman.
Yeah. And so the next morning, he wakes her up at the ass crack of dawn and is like, get dressed, we're going swimming. And she's like, wait, I don't understand. Like, this does not compute. What, Sabrina?
Just keep talking. I'm looking at a line that I have to read out loud, but keep talking.
Read it.
Okay. Actually, this is sort of fun. And he's like, what, having a man in your bedchamber? With your reputation, I thought that would be second nature. And she said, your reputation led me to think you'd be witty, so we're both surprised. God, I love them. Like,
they're so good. And so the other reason that I feel like she says this, right? She's like, I think one of the only reasons I'm truly comfortable enough to be myself with him is because I know that she calls him incapable. And so she knows that he's not going to just, like, pounce on her the moment she stops talking.
Knowing that he wasn't about to try to kiss her or throw himself on his knees or, worst of all, lose control and launch into a kind of wrestling match made it a pleasure to be with him. By the way, if you, like, y'all are going to understand this the more we talk about this book, but she does not know shit about sex. She doesn't know shit about the opposite gender. She doesn't know shit about herself, really. Like,
and like this is a travesty to me, because on the one hand, her mother, when she was very young, she caught her mom in, you know, a moment of in flagrante delicto or whatever with the Frenchman. And this lady was like, and so her mom was like, sweetie, you'll understand when you're older because he's very good looking, but he's also hung like a horse. And she's like, Mom, what does that mean? And she's like, oh, never mind. Go ahead, sweetie. And so then her mom dies before she can really explain what the fuck hung like a horse means. And then her aunt, who is also of the hussy side of the family, like apparently didn't have time to be like, I know you're about to go out into the ton. Like, let me tell you anything. Yeah, it's so fucked. Anyway, so
oh boy,
while
they
they're
go
there,
swimming.
yeah. So she's like, what are we gonna swim in? And he's like, well, you can stay in, you know, your chemise or whatever if you want, but I normally swim naked. And she's like, well, you can't. You have to have something on too. And he's like, oh, I guess I'll leave my small clothes on then. Mm-hmm. And then, so she gets into her chemise. She's standing on the rock, and like he's still taking off his boots or whatever. And she's like, so I just jump in? He's like, well, you don't know how to swim, but... And she's just like...
First, though, she is admiring him.
Oh, yeah.
Like, so he has his back to her, and he's, like, getting undressed, and her... Stupidly, a high little voice in her head had started narrating the whole scene. He's bending down. Yes! He's going to pull off his breeches. He's pulling them over his hips. His buttocks are... The voice seemed to be somewhat strangled. Different from mine.
Different from
Muscle
mine.
too. The voice choked again. Is he going to turn around? And he's like, are you enjoying the show? Because he notices that she's staring at him.
Well, but also he's like, oh shit, I told you I'd leave my small clothes on. So like, I'm gonna pull them back up. Oh my god, this poor thing. So she jumps in, but she doesn't know how to swim. So he immediately jumps in right after her and saves her. He's already told her how cold the water's going to be, but she's like, pish posh, except it's like polar jump.
Frigid.
Yeah. It's like one of those polar boys.
And so he octopuses.
Yes, he grabs her into him and she just, like, gloms on, will not let go. And he keeps on being like, you have to let go. And she's like, no, I really don't think I do. I really don't think so.
So... That's all that she does that day. And so then he, like, pops her out of the pool, and then he starts doing laps, right? Well, when he gets out, she's taken all of the towels. This is a continuing theme throughout the
And he loves
book.
it.
Oh, he loves it!
He loves
and
it.
He, like, I just can't... So, like, he gets out of the pool, and he's erect.
Wait, this is my favorite part, because it never actually says that. It's from her perspective, and I kept on being like...
Yes.
Does that mean what I think it means for a good 30%?
Absolutely does.
Because of this hung like a horse thing, she giggles as he's walking out of the water. And he's like, what are you giggling at? And she's like, well, this is so funny. My mom said something, and you don't hang, do you? And he's like, what are you talking about? And she's like, you don't hang. You really just, like, stand. You just jut out, don't you?
And then, of course, like, he starts laughing.
And then they just start talking about other things. And so I'm like, what are we talking about? Incapable. That sounds fairly capable. I was really excited to have a demisexual heroine and a hero with, like, a penis that couldn't get hard. And, like, to see what that would be and how that would go. And you know what I mean?
Oh, so it would have been delightful, but also, like, I'm not mad.
No, I wasn't mad about it, but I was like, is this premise not the premise? You know?
Yeah.
So anyway.
Oh, man.
Well, and this is why I was like, this book can't be so phallocentric, and he can't be so phallocentric if he doesn't get erect. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Because he's already told her it's more than just the incapability, as she puts it. He just will not marry her, and he never saw himself getting married at all.
Well, especially not her.
Yeah,
because
so it's
she was
twofold.
chosen by his father, and he's like,
I could never marry a
Absolutely
woman
not.
that my father chose. And he doesn't want to marry at all because his dad is obsessed with like royalty and family lines and all that kind of thing. And so the biggest way to get back at his father is to not have an heir. And like
And not
that's
only
very
that-
attractive to him right now.
Not only that, to tell his father that the reason he can't have an heir is because his father caused it with the injury.
Because his father injured him in a drugged out attack. It's terrible.
Yeah.
He thought he was a demon.
Yeah,
Come on.
little child-sized demon.
Good Lord.
Yeah, pretty
Okay.
fucked up.
So after they go swimming for the first time,
This is when she goes up to the sick rooms
The
and she
West
gets to
Wing.
meet Gavin, who's an adorable little boy. And of course, everybody in the sick room is once again fawning over her and thinks she's the most glorious thing in the entire world.
not Nurse Matilda.
Oh yeah, well, Nurse Matilda. Oh boy, sorry, Mrs. Havlick.
Yeah, whatever her
Because-
name is.
Oh, yeah, well, she makes it very clear because Lynette calls her Nurse Matilda, and Mrs. Havelock's like, it's Mrs. Havelock.
Yeah, and it's
The
because
Earl
my
thinks
employer,
it's funny.
my employer is incredibly impertinent, and I will not have it. So she realizes that like the wings are the saddest, most curmudgeoniest, drudgiest places she's ever been in her life. And she's like, how are people supposed to heal here? Especially like a 6-year-old boy. He's been stuck in this bed for months, and he keeps on being like, will I die today, do you think? And everybody's
Well, yeah, and
like,
on top of that, like, because family's not allowed to visit.
yeah.
Half the people are dying. Like, it's a
Right,
whole
oh, yeah.
fucked up thing. Like, it's just sad.
I mean, it's the saddest. And the place just oozes that. And so she takes Gavin outside with Nathan the footman. First, she takes him
Nathan's
to
a
the
peach.
pool. Nathan's the best, yeah. I really wanted he and Eloisa to get together. So,
The maid.
her
Yes,
lady's
okay.
maid. So Gavin first looks out at the ocean and he's like, oh my gosh, it's so big. It's so beautiful. And then she takes him to the stables and they find a dog.
Did you say that the reason that Gavin's there, by the way, he's not dying. His leg was broken. And so he's fine. Like,
Yeah. Well, yeah. So as they go to the stable, they find this dog. And he's like, please, ma'am,
Rufus.
may I have this dog Rufus for my dying present? Basically, this would make my dying days the best in the whole wide world. And then he comes out and he's like, what the fuck are you doing with my patient? This is not cool. Nurse Matilda is like tearing the place apart looking for this kid. And she's like, it is a mess and a crime that you have kept this kid like cooped up the way that you have. He needs fresh air. He needs to have a little joy in his last
And
days.
then they both get interrupted because they're not looking at him. And Gavin's like, look, he likes me. And Gavin's just standing there holding this dog. And then chapter end.
Yeah. But yeah, he looks at her and he's like, well, he's really had you over because that kid is not dying. He just broke his leg. And like, I've been trying to keep him off it because we set it in a plaster for the first time, revolutionary medical trick. And I think it's actually working. And she's like, oh no, okay, all right, okay. So one of my favorite things about this whole thing is that he's always yelling at the other physicians, including his cousin, being like,
yeah.
you're the dumbest. There's no way that's petechial hemorrhage or whatever. I don't fucking know.
You're an idiot.
Yeah, you're an idiot. And then, like, they have dinner, right? And he hates that
Okay.
Sebastian is like, why don't I take your hand and take you to dinner?
Yes, essentially. And so at one point, I don't remember exactly what causes this, but for whatever reason, he actually legitimately causes her mental harm. Like, he laughs at her for something, and she is distraught over it. She's like, she thought she'd been humiliated when a whole ballroom turned its back on her. Who would have thought that the humiliation would be even keener when an ass of a doctor laughed in her face?
Ooh. And you don't remember why?
I don't, but like he like actually does something that like fucks her up, right? And so now that's like the low point, and really it's all uphill from here. Like, so so the Duchess shows up, his mother.
Yeah.
And so she gets there, and
the
Piers doesn't tell his father that his mom is here.
And doesn't tell the mom that if his brother's there. Ooh.
Yes. So the Duke does get downstairs into the drawing room and bends over his erstwhile wife's hand and gives it a kiss. And fucking Piers, the unromantic piece of shit, goes, God, could he look a little less longing? He's a positive disgrace to the male sex. I think you're going to have to reconcile yourself to marrying me or someone else, but definitely not him. Because, and the reason he says that is it's been a running joke that, like, she could still get a dukedom. She would just have to marry the Duke.
If she wants a dukedom so badly, go marry that guy. And she's like, I feel like I might be ruined, but I can still land somebody within 20 years of my age. Come on.
Yeah, and then at one point Piers says, I can help if he has hemorrhoids, regarding his father, but I hear marriage is actually the greater of those two evils.
Oh, God. Yeah.
Piers is so anti-marriage, like, and it's not just because his dad brought her to him, he's just legitimately like, fuck the entire, what's the word I'm looking for?
Establishment?
Yes. Establishment of marriage.
Mm-hmm. His mom loves her, and she's like, it looks like my former husband, might have done one thing right when he chose you. And she's like, OMG, well, your son's definitely not going to marry me. He said it out loud to my face a lot of times. And the mom is like, oh, we never know. Mm-hmm. But she also starts to torment her former husband by just getting those titties out. He says that she squeezes herself into a dress that, like, should not be on those bazungas. And, oh, it's so good. She's flirting with those young doctors. She's setting up dances. Oh. He gets really mad because he can't dance, and he doesn't want to see her dance with Sebastian and, like, Bits, one of the doctors and stuff.
Mm-hmm. Oh, boy, dancing with Bits.
When do they kiss for the first time?
So, it's coming up. So, he wakes her up the next morning.
Yeah.
Right? And she suddenly has the realization that just because a man is incapable does not mean that he is incapable of feeling desire.
Yeah.
Because she's still in bed.
He's leaning over her.
Has his hands on either side of her hips. And he's like, I think we should explore this whole question of betrothal a bit more thoroughly. We might be tossing out the baby with the bathwater.
Yeah. And, like, let's make educated choices. You know what I mean? Let's get all the info.
That's a running theme throughout this book, too. And so she tells him, I've been kissed by a prince. And he says, competition. His eyes glittering even more brightly. Ooh. I'm fiercely competitive. Did you know that? And then he dipped his head and licked her bottom lip in one slick, sweet movement. Then he nibbles on her lip, and then he stands up and he's like, "All right, let's go swimming. Get up.
We should probably stop there."
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And now she's like, "Oh my God, I can't get out of this bed. Not now that I know how delightful and delicious his kisses are."
No, his almost kisses. She makes fun of him for not actually kissing her. She's like, is that what you think a kiss is? Doesn't that happen?
That's true.
Yeah.
It is. Yeah, well, because she's feeling awkward. And so, of course, she's going to lash out at him. And he's like,
just
number one,
licked her face.
Number one, I'm not mad about it.
I'm not mad about it either, but, like, imagine that. Being like, I've been kissed by a prince, and him being like, I can one-up that, and then just slobbering on your face?
Mm-hmm. Hey.
Like, is that what you think this is?
There was not a single moment in this book that I was not horny for this man.
Same.
You can lick whatever the fuck you want, bud.
I'm with you, but it's gotta be befuddling. And then he does.
So,
okay.
They go swimming again, and he starts to try and teach her, like, she started learning to float and things like that, and he started to, like, he's like, well, I'm allowed to admire as long as I don't touch. Famous last words.
Hilarious.
Yeah. And so they're, learning things, and then when, oh god, then he goes, she seemed to have a fair sense of rhythm while she's like practicing paddling on this rock. Of course she has, a voice murmured inside him. He could teach her rhythm, and she would. He thrust the thought away. Time to go, he said briskly, turning away. I have a wing of patients waiting for me, some of them probably cadavers by now. Can't keep those cadavers waiting. It's not polite. By the way, this is not the first time that he has used his patience to literally be like, well, gotta go. This is getting a little too close for comfort.
Cock block.
Bye.
Gotta block my own cock. Gotta go.
Oh,
but then,
God. And this is when he started, like, getting into it, though, because he started, like, he's like, fuck, how did my dad find her? Because she is perfect.
Well, and hilariously, in order to put off this question of marriage and, you know, his responsibilities, he apparently sent a letter to his dad that was like 3 pages long, being like, she's got to be more beautiful than the sun and the moon put together. She's got to be super duper smart. She's got to be so witty. She's got to make people fall on the floor with her comedy. Like, all of this stuff. And then she shows up and he's like, fuck, dude. He did it. Oh, no. And I mean... So she's only ever been valued for her beauty, but it's the thing she cares the least about. And so this man who's like, I don't give a fuck about any of that. Like, I actually don't care.
Yeah, which,
she
like,
thinks it's
keep
because
that
he's
in mind,
incapable.
listener.
Yeah. And it's actually because he's also a demisexual, right? Maybe?
I don't think so.
No?
Because he definitely feels sexual, like, he feels sexual attraction from Git, right? And he's commented about how he's had multiple flings, essentially. Like, he is not any form of bird.
Okay.
And, like, the way he acts, he's been injured his entire life, so there's no way that it wasn't just, like, miscellaneous strumpets that he tossed a couple of guineas, you know?
Regular historian Sabrina over there. She reads 1.5 Eloisa James books. She's
clear,
tossing guineas and strumpets.
I do love a fucking historical.
No,
so,
same.
like...
Same.
But anyway, so now this is their actual first kiss. So they're going back and forth, right?
Yeah.
And they're getting at it because she's like, your father loves you. And he's like, fuck my dad. And they're like arguing about it. And he's like, well, it's not like your dad loves you. He sent you up here all alone without any sort of chaperone. Like, get fucked, lady. And they're all up close to each other.
They're saying nasty things to each other.
They are. Oh God, they're so mean to each other. And it's all foreplay.
Yeah. I have a hard time.
Even the truly cruel shit that they say to each other until the climactic scene. To be clear, if somebody said this to me, I would break down.
This is not relatable content for me at all.
But I loved it.
I do love reading it, though.
I do.
Like, to be clear, don't try to get in my pants by telling me true shit that's not nice, okay?
Yeah. I have a therapist for that, okay?
That's exactly right. I have different relationships for that. Thank you.
Yeah. If anything, I need you to go get me the pint of ice cream and hold me while I'm feeling feelings.
Yeah, that'll make me feel sexy things in my pants.
Oh, yeah. I'll write you until the fucking cows come home.
Absolutely.
Did I tell you? I haven't told you. I found out there are cows. So I knew this already because there are cows down the road from me. I see them every time I drive to work.
Listener, I have absolutely no idea where this is going.
And, well, I found out that sometimes they escape.
Okay.
And sometimes they'll just be meandering the road. And so when I say I would ride you until the cows come home, it's pretty literal. I just suddenly thought of that. I have a picture to send you later.
Might actually come home. Yeah, that's fair.
Anyway, so this is like now they're kissing, and she is acknowledging. She's like, "Wow, I really hated it when the prince threw his tongue all over me, but wow."
But Piers doesn't do that.
It's not
like
a
this
gentle
playful
adoration.
Game, back and forth.
It's a ravaging, craving kiss, a wildly passionate, tumultuous stand and deliver kiss. I want that tattooed on my fucking body.
Stand and deliver kiss. I love it. Yeah, so then they kiss, but then they break apart. Yeah.
It was the sort of kiss that a gentleman never, ever gave a lady.
Ooh.
Lynette loved it.
Yes. And then at dinner, she's like, I'm totally cool, calm, and collected. Nothing even matters, and I'm just flirting with boys. It's fine. I don't... that didn't make a difference to me at all. That kiss didn't make a difference. And he kind of hates it, but he's also not going to compete with anyone else. Thanks so much. So, I don't know. It gets to the point where, like, they only talk to each other because Sebastian takes her over to him, basically.
Well, and also, like, everybody is wildly aware that he's a fucking raging asshole. His mom even, right? He tells his mom, you're saying she's too good for me? And his mother, to his face, says, good, I know nothing about, but too beautiful of a certainty. You should have married her the moment she got here before she had a chance to get to know you.
Yeah!
Mom!
I mean, and she's not wrong. You know? He's just very lucky that that does it for her. They're just right for each other is all.
Wait, I have one more quote for you.
Please.
This is them witty bantering at each other again. Good evening, fiancé. Beelzebub. I've been demoted. I'm sure people have called me Lucifer in the past. Wasn't Beelzebub just a lesser devil? In fact, I think you're confusing your demons. Beelzebub is another name for the evil one himself. Oh, good. I'm ferociously competitive. I think I told you that before. My God. Just...
Loving them.
Okay, and to be clear, I don't like this in every book because an author has to do it right. I have read books before where these like characters are have this kind of animosity with each other and hated it and DNF'd it because it just it
doesn't
did not
feel
actually
playful.
feel. No, because like even as cruel as they are to each other 90% of the time, like it's playful. I'm not kidding, listeners. This is foreplay. Read this book. Oh my God.
Yeah, it was only like the one time that it actually got heated in a real way. And even then he was saying, you know, like your father doesn't love you enough to do blah, blah, blah. And she said something back to the effect of like, my father might be weak and like kind of an ass, but he loves me and you're not going to take that away. So I don't know. It's not like they're ever truly mean to each other, if that makes sense. She's like, you're being an ass about your dad. And he's like, well, your dad, I don't even know if he likes you. And she's like, shut the fuck up.
They're projecting. They projected each other a lot and then like argue about it and then
kiss.
It's over.
And then kiss. So every single morning he's going to wake her up to teach her swimming. One morning.
Her up?
Go ahead.
No, you go.
He wakes her up with hot chocolate. They go down and
by dripping it on her face.
Yeah.
And he's like, you look like you have the pox. Wait, just one more dribble. Like,
yeah.
And now
I forgot
there you
about
go.
that.
Now you look like Queen Elizabeth. That's fucked up.
And before we forget, later on they have this whole discussion about him being like, do you think it's worse for beautiful women or like regular women, or like maybe he even says ugly women, to get like pox scars on their face? And she's like, oh, beautiful women for sure, because they have way more to lose. And he's like, huh, interesting. And they just like keep moving on. Anyway, this morning they go out, they do their swimming stuff, right? He, I think, forgets to keep his small clothes on, but neither of them notice, allegedly. And then when they're when they're looking out at the ocean, she's like, wow, it's so beautiful here. And he's like, yeah, but the sky's doing weird stuff. Like in Wales, that means there could be a storm coming on and like, you know, you won't even know it. So then they're swimming and swimming and swimming. She gets out. She wraps herself in some towels. He gets out. Then look, and like they're flirting. They're about to like maybe kiss or do something more.
He has his cock out and he's touching his cock.
I forgot about that. Can you give me more details on that, please?
Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Hang on. Oh, this. This is it. So when he's getting undressed, he's like, "Want me to stand up so you don't miss anything?"
Yeah.
And just like they're being like super adorable. And oh wait, no, that's later. Where the fuck is it? I know for a fact I highlighted this. I guess I didn't.
I don't remember him stroking himself until they get to the guardhouse, but he could have been.
No, he strokes himself and he's looking down on her and he's like flirting with her.
Looking
and then
real
he
good.
looks up and he's like, "Oh fuck." And then they start running, except he can't run and he's like, "Run to the house." And she's like, "I'm not fucking leaving you, you big lummox."
Right.
And so she's like walking next to him and then he's like, "Oh, the guardhouse. Let's go into the guardhouse." So they go into the guardhouse and she's
there's
cold,
roughly nothing in there.
There is nothing in the main room, period. Yeah. And then she opens a door and there's a bedroom. And she is freezing. And so she's like, "Okay, I need, like, warmth. I'm dying right now."
She finds a shirt in a random closet and then puts that on. And then she goes to open the door to be like, "Hey, let's talk about..." But then she sees he's totally naked,
That's
squatting
when he says,
in
"Want
front
me
of the
to
fire.
stand up so you don't miss anything."
Yes. Oh my god. So she's like, "No, no."
Apparently he sounded amused, but there was a strain of something feral in it. Deep and male and dangerous.
And she's like, "Where's your towel? Where's your small clothes?" And he's like, "I forgot to leave those on. And also I lost my towel in the wind or something. So, whatever." Mm-hmm. So she's like, "Okay, I'm going to go and I'm going to get him like a sheet or something to wear." Mm-hmm. But he gets his own tablecloth and then they end up putting the sheet back on the bed and sitting on the bed because he's like, "There's literally no other furniture. We have to sit in here." Mm-hmm. And then this turns in to something I honestly was not expecting at this point in the book.
You weren't expecting it's on TM?
I was expecting her to edge us way more. I was expecting there to be some reason for Eloisa James to edge us more.
Oh my god, no. So this was fucking incredible.
Yeah.
Okay? So he's like, "You'll do anything to win, won't you?" And she's like, "I'm very competitive. Did you think you were the only one?" "Not anymore," he muttered. And then he bends his head to hers and starts kissing her. But then, fucking Piers goes, "Bloody hell, why do I feel as if I'm making love to a rag doll here? You seemed to know how to kiss yesterday." Because she was feeling like, "I'm gonna be a perfect little, lady and, like, essentially, like, lay back and just let you do whatever you want to me." And he's like, "Oh, no.
I want an active participant here." And she's like, yeah, okay, cool. So she goes in for it, and it's great. Their makeout is amazing. But then is this before or after they have the conversation about what capabilities he does and does not possess?
Okay, so that happens after, because he goes down on her. So he is fingering her and like kissing on her tits and like suckling on her nipples.
He's like, "You have the most perfect boobs that I've ever seen in my life.
God.
They're a man's dream."
He's I'm sorry, I have another fucking highlight. I can't help it. Eloisa James, this is your fault.
Yeah.
Oh, so delicate, he said, crooning. Such good working order. "You're diagnosing me," she said, managing to pry her head off the pillow so she could look down at him. He looked up at her, the devil in his eyes. "I'm diagnosing the pinkest." He dropped another kiss and she quivered again. "Sweetest," another kiss. "Most delectable part of Lynette." And then I swooned. Yep.
Yeah. So he goes down on her like the Beelzebub he is, and she's all about it. She has her first ever orgasm. Mm-hmm. And then afterwards, he like comes up and he's like, "Tell me exactly how much you know about this whole situation." And she's like, "Well, I know most of it. I know like the broad strokes or whatever. Why don't you tell me though?" And he's like, "How about you tell me and I'll correct you."
Well, he's like, "Well, why do you think that men hang down the front? How does that work? Is it like stuffing a sausage?" And I've never been more horrified.
And And so she's like, well, I don't know. And he's like, well, that's because we do hang, just not when we're into it. Like, I have full capability in that part of my body. That's sort of a rumor I started. And she's like, wait a minute. We can actually have like penetrative sex the way that a husband does with a wife, basically. And he's like, yeah, girl, we totally can. So it gets to the point.
They fuck for science.
Well, yes. However, before they fuck for science, she says, so what do we do now? And he says, well, I mean, you're the one that virginity is important to. Like, it's a really high valued commodity. So whatever we do now is really up to you. And she's like, I mean, it was a high valued commodity. And then the bidding sort of stopped because everybody thought I was ruined. He's like, yeah, but, you know, in the long run, it's still something that is, you know, worth something to you or others or whatever. So, like, this is in your hands. And she attacks him. It's fantastic.
Well, they also have to talk of, like, well, what happens if I get pregnant?
Yeah.
And he's like,
she
well,
says,
then we'll marry.
Yeah. And, like, this is the part where I was like, everybody's being an idiot face. If you're so willing to get married just because she's pregnant, like, you should just get married. Like, you're obviously not that against marriage, or you would just wait, because it's a hailstorm, y'all. And, like, it's Welsh hail, you know, so they're, like, the size of tennis balls or whatever. So, like, they're honestly stuck in this guardhouse for a while. But, like, you can wait 3 hours and go get a French letter or whatever the fuck.
Nope, they're going raw this whole fucking book.
Yeah, no, I know. So I'm just like, everybody needs to get over themselves and y'all just need to be together forever. But we're only, 60% of the way through the book? Something like that?
About 55 or something like that.
Yeah.
55, 60. And yeah, so then now, listener, they fuck for science. Because he's like, I think we should investigate exactly what we're proposing to do. After all, where there is a chance of marriage, one must proceed with care. Deliberation. Make absolutely sure that neither of us has the slightest qualm.
Ooh.
Oh boy.
So she's like, get inside me. And he's like, well, we should go a little slow, you know, because virginity.
Funniest first
so
times
good.
I've ever read in my life.
Yeah. And so she's like, she just keeps on like sort of trying to pull him in, and she's like nonverbal even. And he's like, are you sure? And she's basically just like feral and being like, like get in me. So she's pulling him in. He finally penetrates her, and then he stills, and he's like, is there any pain? And she's thinking to herself, like, it's not like pain, but it's a stretch and it's a whatever. But then nothing else happens.
But it's also really good.
Yeah. And so she's like,
but then it stops being really good because he's not moving.
Is that it? Is it over? And he's like, and he just starts giggling. He just starts chuckling in her ear. And she's like, I don't think this is a really appropriate time for you to laugh. And she's like, and so he's like, well, is it okay with you if I start moving? And she thinks to herself, well, it's not great right now, but I don't want you to leave.
Yeah, and he says, I'm going to have to move now. The pause for virgin accommodation is over. And she says, all right. And she's disappointed.
Yeah,
and so
she's like, I guess it's over now.
I guess it's done. And then he goes to Pound Town, and she's like, she goes feral again. She's like...
She's like, this is the best thing that's ever happened. Oh my God.
And then he's like, we need to... She's like, what? Am I doing it right? Should I be doing something else? Shall I... Shut up, he said in her ear. And then he puts his thumb down and he does diddle the do.
Yes.
And then she comes like a freight train. And
just like a freight train. And he follows soon after. Because of those clutchy vaginal muscles, you know? You're a clutching. It's great.
Don't forget, she's a virgin, so she's real tight.
Sure, man.
That's how that works.
Yeah, totally. So then, they just start having sex on the regular.
Yep.
All over the place. At one point, he just pulls her into an alcove and diddles her. And then is like, all right, let's go about our days.
One of my favorites is the day after. Okay? The day after they're walking out of the sick room, and he's like, come on then. Time for a private consult with your favorite doctor. Because he, like, pulls her into this side room, and he's like, look, an empty bed just waiting for a patient.
What a bed.
And then he's like, come tell me all about that nasty raw feeling caused by that seducing devil who took advantage of you. And she's like, no, we can't do this. Like, we have things that we need to do. And then he's like, oh, actually, will you take my cane for me? And then she goes to take it from him, and he uses the cane to, like, pull her onto him.
This was so cute.
And then they're going back and forth, like, are you sore? And he's like, want me to take a look and make sure that it's all in working order? It would be my pleasure.
Uh-huh. But then she starts, like, kissing down him because she loves the fact that his nipples are so sensitive. And then she goes, don't you think you should take off your breeches? And he says, well, we can't do anything serious, you know? And she's like, but still, I just want to look at it.
We can't do anything serious, Lynette. Your poor little twat cannot take another intrusion from. And then she's like, this? And she's like petting on his cock.
Uh-huh.
Your poor little twat.
Your poor little twat.
He is so crass. I love him so much. For her.
Me too.
For her.
For her.
Not for me.
That's exactly right. Nope, I need more words of affirmation. Thanks so much. So then she's like playing with him and she gets him out fully and then she like kisses the head of his cock and he's like, oh my God, the world is like tilting on a different axis. And he goes, I think I should, it's my responsibility to tell you that most ladies don't pleasure a man like this. And she's like, what, like this? And she like licks on him again. She's like, why ever not? You did to me. And he's like, I don't really know. And then she just starts blowing him to, I mean, smithereens, I guess.
To the point where he forgot his name. He forgot he was a doctor. He forgot everything. Everything.
Except for her mouth and his cock. Oh, it's so good. Oh, and then he's like, I'm about to go. My sperm, that means that my sperm is about to shoot out of my body. And she goes, she comes up and she goes, is it injurious? And he's like, no, it's not injurious. And she's like, well, good. And then she just keeps going until she swallows. And he's like, everything, the world has changed. Like, I'm not the same person.
I have a story.
Extra, extra. Oh my God. Somebody get me a newsboy. Holy shit.
We're about to be getting to the point you don't want anybody around this castle that is not already around this castle.
No, they're doing it everywhere. Oh, except also that.
Yeah, because we're getting to the point where we're getting there. So the next night they have a dance. His mother puts on a little mini ball. And so everyone's dancing with people. And this is when the Duke and Piers have like a conversation together. And his father's like, oh, like, I can't, like, look how beautiful she is, and this is, like, it wasn't like this when we were younger. I wouldn't have been sitting over here lollygagging after her.
When we first met, I didn't even ask her to dance. I just pulled her onto the dance floor. I didn't wait for an introduction. And he's like, well, why don't you go not wait for an introduction now? And he goes, no, I really fucked her over, and so my punishment is that she gets the opportunity to turn me down. I have to ask.
Oh, and like, to be
so
clear,
that she can rightly reject me.
We're getting like snippets and scenes in the Duke's point of view of him and
this is the first time Marguerite. So this is when the Duke snaps and she's doing too much flirting with too many young men, thank you,
with her little gazungas just bobbling out the top.
They're just toddling all over the place. And so he grabs her by the hand and takes her out of the room. And she's like, what's happening? Oh, because several people have been like, hey, Piers, your mom and dad are still in love with each other. And he's like, ugh, maybe. I don't really care. Because he's always talking about his dad mooning after his mom. And then I think she says, but they don't have a chance. Your mom is going to continue to reject him on your behalf if you don't let her know that, like, it's okay and it won't hurt you if she were to follow her feelings. So this is one of those times where he's like, take me back. Like, I love you. It was the worst mistake I've ever made in my life. And she says, I could give a damn. I'm past, you ruining my reputation in England. I don't give a shit about that. But I will never, ever be able to forgive you for what you did to our boy. And he's like, I know. I'm never going to be able to forgive myself either. And then he leans in and he like goes slowly and he kisses her. And for a moment, she kisses him back. And then she pulls away and walks out the door without saying a word. Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, it's gut-wrenching.
Like, oh, boy.
Ah. So then he and Sebastian have a conversation in the drawing room while she is dancing with Bits all about. Bits is laughing down at her and blah, 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 blah. And he's like, I hate it.
Wait, I was wrong. That's not happening quite yet.
Oh. What?
Her and Bits dancing. So this is when they're all hanging out in the drawing room. This is when the thing happens with her father, or his father and his mother.
Okay.
Or actually, I don't think it is technically, but this is, I have to read this paragraph.
Please.
So, everyone has left the drawing room except for him and her.
Oh my god, this is so good. No, everyone has not left the drawing room. As soon as the dad and mom leave, he gives the fuck off chin nod to the ducklings, and they fuck off too. So now they're alone.
Sebastian's been
best.
Gone. And so they have like a flirty time, and this, I just have to share this one little bit where he says, so he's being called away because Sebastian needs help with something. And as they're leaving, he says, if I were to marry anyone, Lynette, it would be you. And she says, I always knew these breasts would come in handy.
Oh. And then they kiss in front of God and everybody.
Everybody, yep. And so he says, he leans in, and she's like, we're playing, and I deserve to play after all that has happened to me. And he says, you do. I'm just a fool, just as you said. And then he leans in and whispers, you're one hell of a playmate?
Yeah.
Oh.
Because during this conversation, he's like, I would marry, if I was going to, it would be you. But like, I just need to reiterate, I'm definitely not marrying you. She's like, I know, but we're playing. So I just wanted to make sure they knew that context.
No worries. And then the next couple of days happen, and I have to read you this paragraph.
Please.
One more time, she promised herself. That wasn't too trollopy.
Yeah.
She wouldn't be too trollopy, but when they actually got to the guardhouse, trollopy. There was no other way to describe her behavior, nor the day after, nor the day after that. Certainly not the day when Piers caught her in the corridor after she had read Camilla to a group of patients, pulled her into an alcove, and with a quick hand between her legs, reduced her to, well, trollophood.
Trollophood! Okay, so this is the other thing that's very important. We keep on getting scenes with, like, Gavin and the guy right next to him, and he has a dog now, and she is like, we need to improve patient morale and patient experience and patient life here. So I want to talk to Nurse Matilda and figure out, like, what this is, because it's inhumane that families don't get to be there. So while he's in the middle of diagnosing a patient, Nurse Matilda and she sort of burst into the room, and she's like, sir, I am offended. I cannot believe that this woman, like, deigns to criticize me in the way that I run my wing and blah, blah, blah. And so they're like, well, she's like, well, families need to come around. And as they're diagnosing this person, she's like, wait, is his wife still on the premises? And Nurse Matilda's like, yeah, she is. She's down in the kitchen, and she's probably making a right fuss, and nobody can handle her, and it's just the worst for the hospital. And she's like, well, if we get her up here, we can probably get her to answer all the questions that he can't answer from, like, a third-party perspective. Like, what did he look like when this thing happened to him? What were the circumstances or whatever? And because they have this conversation, they're able to diagnose him immediately when they wouldn't have been able to otherwise. And he looks at Nurse Matilda and he says, "You just lost the argument. I can't believe that I haven't used families as a resource like this in diagnosing before. And so you're going to have to figure this out." And then he looks at her and he's like, "Actually, you know what? No, you're fired." And and so she is like, "I'm sure that we will figure out a way to get families in here and improve patient lives while still allowing Nurse Matilda to run her wing in the efficient, fastidious way that she does." And Nurse Matilda's
ultimately, Nurse Matilda is great at being a fucking badass nurse and taking care of these people. She's just also a little bit of a heartless old coot.
Right. So a happy medium is what we're trying to strike, you know? We get a moment where Gavin's mom comes and they have this whole moment where she's like, "Thank you so much for being here with him. Like, I've lain awake at night not being able to visit him and thinking, like, what if that was the last time I get to see him? Because, like, he catches an infection at the hospital because of, you know, like a broken leg leads to my 6-year-old dying is totally a possibility." And so, and then Lynette Lynette's like, "Why don't you come quilting with the ladies? Like, we've got a lady who's pregnant with twins and she can't get out of bed and she's bored to tears. I really think that could be fun." And so she is doing a bunch of shit in their castle hospital to improve things and make it run smoother, while he, like, ends up being able to do his job more easily because he can diagnose people better and people are happier and all the business. It's the best. But he's also like, wow, things are going to suck when she leaves, which she inevitably will, and she has to.
Well, there's also, like, unsurprisingly, we don't see any of this, like, super on paper, but, like, references to how they're not just fucking now. Like, they are having conversations.
They're talking late at night
together, and they're, like,
they're working
snuggled
together
up by the fire. Like, oh,
they're commiserating
God, like,
about patients
the
together.
The growth of their relationship was really beautiful.
Fucking
in this
gorgeous.
book, which was necessary, because, like, we needed to see a growth in relationship, because, to be clear, like I said, I've read books where the characters were had animosity like this, and it just doesn't work. God fucking Jesus damn it.
We were like, where the fuck are those 15 chapters where he's nice to her?
God, these are the 15 chapters.
That's exactly
these
right.
These are the 15 chapters.
That's exactly right. So, anyway, now they're at a dance.
And
she's dancing with Bits, and he's having a conversation with Sebastian, because Sebastian's like...
This was a hard conversation.
It was. It absolutely was, because he's like, what gives, man? Like, she's perfect for you. Everyone can see it. If she would allow it, I would run away with her right now and, like, give you the bird on the way out. Like, she's incredible. What are you doing?
Faster than you, Piers. Sebastian, how dare you?
Sebastian, that was low. He says, I've always run better. I do surgery better. I fuck better, though that's not polite to say. He's so funny.
And then Piers is coming to, like, some realizations about it. He's like, I've never bothered to love anyone, because he's starting to realize that he loves her.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh.
And Sebastian's like, he sort of comes to the realization, he's like, hold on, are you not considering her because your father chose her? Because that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. And Piers is like, yes, that was part of it, but I'm more concerned about turning into my father. Mm-hmm. He's really afraid that, like, you know...
One day the pain is going to be too much and he's going to turn to laudanum.
Yeah.
And he says, I don't want to watch her wilt when I'm out of my mind from pain, or grow afraid the way my mother did with my father, if I turn to laudanum to relieve it. And Sebastian's like, you never do. And he's like, I might, though.
I might.
It's always there. It's a possibility, and it's a temptation.
Yeah.
Like father, like son, perhaps, but I'm not going to put her through that. And Sebastian's like, oh.
Yeah, he says something like...
You're in love with her.
Yeah. He says something like, perfect woman, you know, who's, you know, like the most beautiful in the land. And then like chronic pain man who has a tendency to pop off with a terrible temper leads to a recipe for unhappiness. And he says, and Sebastian says, well, maybe not. And he goes, not for me, no, but for her, definitely. And I'm not doing that to her. And he's like, so please go after her. Go do it. Go seduce her, make her fall in love with you.
But you're not living in my house.
But you're not living here because I could not handle it. But then they get called away as she's dancing with Bits. And they have to go upstairs because there's like a fever that's been brewing.
Well, there's somebody who has shown up and is sick and getting worse. And they go up, check out this person, and go, oh fuck, this dude has scarlet fever. And then he turns to Prufric and he's like, all right, you remember the plans that we made in case of a epidemic?
Yeah.
Time to do those. AKA get everybody who is not critical to patient care the fuck out of here.
Yeah, and everybody who's not actively dying or showing signs of a fever or like early signs of scarlet fever.
Like go to the local town, get all of the fucking carriages you can. Like we need to get these people out.
Yeah, and he says first and foremost, get my mother, father, and Lynette out of here. And he's like, okay, but then Mumsy Marguerite refuses to leave because what if he gets sick? Somebody has to nurse him.
Take care of him.
Yes. And so he is like, Mom, I will throw you out on your ass myself. Get the fuck out. And then Lynette's like, the guardhouse. What about the guardhouse? You can just go stay there because they've turned it into a love nest, y'all. They have furnished it with the best out of the house, okay, so they can fuck there whenever they want.
Yeah, and like literally when the parents go into the guardhouse the first time, they're like, wasn't that love seat in the sitting room?
It's so good.
Interesting.
Yeah. So
because the Duke and Lynette are going to be going back to London, but then the Duke is like, I'm not leaving either. You know what? I'm going to stay here with you, Marguerite, and because if you get sick, I have to take care of you. And she's like, well, what if I don't want you here? And he's like, well, then I don't have to be in here. I'll sleep on the porch. I'll make sure that you don't get sick. I'll keep the food, like all of the people away from you. I'm going to protect you. I will die for you.
Yeah, and then he says, don't forgive me. I'll never be able to forgive myself, but take me back. You don't have to forgive me, but please take me back. And they end up reconciling right there. But meanwhile, Piers is just stomping all the fuck over Lynette's heart in the fucking parlor. He's white fanging her hard.
Well, and also he legitimately believes that he means this in this moment. You can tell that there's a lot of words spoken in this chapter, but essentially what it boils down to is he loves her too much to put her through being with him, and so now he's going to hurt her to get away from him, and he's not going after her. Like, as far as he's concerned, this is it.
Yeah, he says goodbye, Lynette, forever.
And he keeps saying, like, I don't want to marry you. I don't want to marry you. It's never been a possibility. I don't want to be with you. And she's like, I think I might want to marry you.
And then she says, I love you. And he says, I don't want to marry you. And they sort of keep going back and forth like that. And then she's like, you're just afraid. You're just afraid of this. And I'll wait for you. Like, I don't mind being a fool for you. I'm in love with you. So I'll wait for you in London for a time. And he's like, don't be daft or whatever.
Oh, God. And he's such a dick, too. He's like, at one point, he's like, for God's sake, have you no dignity? I tucked you and we were good together, but you're not the first and you won't be the last.
The way my mouth was hanging open like a goddamn guppy.
He said some fucking truly heinous shit in here.
Honestly, between this and simultaneously reading some of Librarian in New York, okay?
Oh, my God.
That hero can go fuck himself.
Yeah.
The way that he talks to her, constantly that is one of the I don't know that I'm gonna be I don't know that I'm gonna actually like. I think this is gonna be the first Finley Fenn book I don't like. I don't know, I'll report back. But like,
how far are you now?
I don't know, 30%, 40%.
Oh my God. no, he doesn't start. You're not gonna start liking him until like 85%.
Oh God, he's so mean, and like it sort of hits all of my worst I need words of affirmation points.
Yep,
you know what I mean?
Same. That was a hard
And-
book to get through, but I'll put it this way: I don't regret it.
Yeah, okay. I know you keep on talking about. Okay, I'm 57% of the way through, and I still hate him. But he has,
I said 85%.
you know, he's fucked her with a claw finger, so you know.
Oh boy. But anyway, yeah. So anyway, back to not God. I could go down an orc hole right now, but we have to finish this book.
We have to finish this book.
So
yeah, so
anyway,
he white fangs her,
and
and
he's
she
like-
crawls out a window to get to the coach.
well,
It's
and she also like it was really nice because she starts coming back at him during this though, because he's saying all these things, and he's like, she's like, I know what you're saying.
You love me.
Is not like, I know that you love me.
Yeah.
There's no, or no, she doesn't say it because she doesn't know that he loves her. She finds that out in the chicken coop. She comes to that conclusion in the chicken coop.
Oh, then what does she say?
But she's like, saying
I know that
things-
you
she's
care
like,
for me. It's something like that.
Well, like, essentially, she's like, you basically, fuck you. If you married me, if you admitted to your feelings, because she doesn't say love, but she knows that he cares for her. And at one point she says, if you married me, if you admitted to your feelings, it would mean that misery is not a given, but a choice.
God.
And, like, they're all fucked up together. And then she's like, I'll wait for you in London for a time in case you change your mind. And he's like, has no one any dignity around here? You're as embarrassing as my father. And she says,
Oh.
I don't mind being a fool for you. I love you.
Yeah.
Oh, God. And then she does. She goes off in the carriage. Everybody else stays at the castle. And then we see a bunch of scenes where he is taking care of everything. He's like, it's them taking care of stuff, getting her out. Because he's also like, they're getting it out, like, everyone needs to be isolated, like, put people in isolation, no leeches, bring
Stop
them to the
bleeding
fucking
people.
castle.
You goddamn
and all these things.
dummies.
And, oh my God, the last thing that we do see as she's leaving the castle, though, is her laying back in the coach and not feeling great. Yeah. And, like, the minute I saw that, I was like, oh my God, this bitch has scarlet fever.
The minute he was sending her away, I was like, oh, fuck. So,
well,
the
we're
Duke
not all
also...
Sherlock Holmeses.
Sorry, you're
okay?
right. You're right. No, and the Duke goes out and he, like, comforts her and he says, you know, I had my people wait for you at this place and so you'll, you know, be able to get wherever, but I'm staying with Marguerite. And she says, I'm so happy for you. And I'm, you know, and he keeps on being like, I'm so sorry. If I had known the depths of my son's hatred for me, I wouldn't have put you in this position in the first place. And she says, but then I wouldn't have met Piers. So it's really okay. Yeah. But meanwhile, 6 days later, he finds out that she was...
skip over a lot of it because it's graphic.
The book basically does, though.
It doesn't.
Like, it's sort of a montage.
There's a whole, well, okay, kind of, but, like, there's some, like, graphic scenes of her in, like, the chicken coop talking, like, with the
I wasn't there
doctor.
yet.
Oh.
I'm not there yet. So, like, from his perspective, 6 days later, he and Sebastian are having a conversation, and he finds out that the Duke is still there. He's like, wait, hold the phone. How the fuck did Lynette get back to London then?
He's been having nightmares this whole time, though, about something bad happening to her and, like, something at the tip of his tongue, and he can't figure out what it could possibly be, but there's something up with her, but it's just a nightmare.
Because Bits is sick. We forgot to tell them that.
Bits is sick, and and she danced the night before he started showing symptoms.
Yeah. So he's like, she didn't have a chaperone to fucking London. And Sebastian's like, you booted her out of this castle. You don't get to care about that anymore. Shut the fuck up and turn the page. But then finally he's like, oh my God, I just remembered the thing that I haven't been able to remember is them dancing. And so, holy fuck, there's a really good chance that she's sick. So he's like, get the carriage, get the curricle, like, I'm going. And they sort of talk sense into him, and he figures out there's one of two places that the carriage would have gone, because it's Wales. And, like, there's two towns that sound nearly identical.
Literally two towns that are identical except for the last two letters, which is either an LL or an RR.
Which is like, come on, Wales, okay? So anyway, he goes to the first one, and they're like, nope, all the servants were here. Nobody else showed up, and so they fucked off because they were worried about scarlet fever. So he goes to the other place, and we have seen those. Yeah, we've seen some graphic scenes with her because there was an innkeeper, I guess, that just like shoved her in an abandoned chicken
coop. They stole all of her stuff.
Yeah.
And potentially kind of didn't take care of the driver, and now he's dead, maybe murdered. We're not really sure.
Who knows?
But she got shoved in a ratty nightgown into a fucking chicken coop that they didn't bother to clean out. And so she's been suffering there for 6 days. And he is like, he's fucking pissed. He's like, get the fuck out of here. You have 1 hour. Otherwise, I'm going to the magistrate. And the magistrate's my friend because guess what? I just cured his daughter of scarlet fever. So if you don't get the fuck out of here, I'm sending you to the colonies.
Yeah, Madame and Mr. Thénardier from Les Mis are like, oh no, we did everything we could out of our Christian goodness or whatever. And he's like, I will press charges for thievery and other bullshit on you if you don't get the fuck out. And so Madame Thénardier and her husband do
fuck out. And
but
so
they also take everything.
So one of the coachman, Buller, he's like, grab her, take her upstairs into the one of the only clean places. Yeah. And so Buller takes her up there, and then it's graphic. Like,
he does some graphic
we don't
cleanup
need
of
to
her.
go into
Well, but he also sends Buller away in order to like get reinforcements and come back in the morning.
And he is the one carting water up and down the stairs.
Yeah,
because he's taking care of her, and he has to cut all of her hair off.
Oh God, because there's no way he can get it clean.
Oh, but he's like so sweet while he's taking care of her.
He's talking to her the whole time,
crying, and he's telling her everything that he's doing, and he's like, "Thank fuck, she's unconscious right now."
Yeah, he's saying, like, you're in a coma, but I actually think this is better because otherwise it would be really fucking painful. I have to clean everything off of you. Like, it's terrible. At one point, though,
this was kind of funny. He was like, I think we'll have to double Nurse Matilda's wages because this is harder than what I do with patients.
Yeah. And then he has to, like, after he's done with the bath in that bed, he has to carry her.
And he
has to carry her down the hallway into another room.
And he's in agony.
And he basically almost doesn't make it. Like, it's really bad.
He gets her into the bed, and then he ends up collapsing, and his cane is in the other room, too.
Yeah.
And so he ends up crawling. He's like, this is mortifying, naked. But also, like, I'm taking care of her. And so he crawls naked to the other room to get the water, because he knows that they need water. And then he takes care of her, and then...
Listener, he's naked because his clothes were, like, covered in chicken shit and awful stuff. So he couldn't get her clean and then put her on his chicken shit body.
Hey, baby.
Yeah, right?
This rod will wake you up. Like, that's not what's happening
truly,
here.
like, that was a moment where I was like, there is a super proud Earl crawling naked from one room to the other in order to, like, take care of his love. And, like, while he was yelling at the innkeepers and everything, he's like, you didn't take care of my wife. And that's how he's referring to her to everyone. Like, even when his staff gets there, he's like, well, that's my fiance. It's going to be my wife. Like, it doesn't matter what happened. We're going to get married. She just has to live through this.
And so that night he's like holding her and taking care of her, and he started sleeping with her, and she wakes up a little bit.
Yeah.
Because she realized that, like, so at one point I highlighted this because, like, oh God. He was her lodestone after all, her beating heart, and although he pushed her away, he would be broken when he learned of her death. She knew that. Because in her haze, her scarlet fever haze in the chicken coop, she was like, when I survive this, if I survive this, I'm going back to that fucking castle, and I'm making him mine.
Yeah.
I'm not fucking accepting shit.
Yep.
That man's mine. He pushed me away because he loves me.
Yep. Yeah.
And then she does wake up, and then they have this, like, he, like, wakes up, and he's like, oh, Lynette. And then he, like, jerks awake, and he's like, you're awake! Ah!
Yeah.
And then
he, like, feeds her some water.
Another montage of, like, healing
it's 3 days of her, like, sort
her.
of, like, waking up and going unconscious again. And then when she finally does wake up, she starts to fully understand the state of her person.
Yeah.
And, like, how scarred she is and how
marked.
rashy and blistered she
her
is.
Her hair's all gone.
Yeah.
Like,
and she has a full break down over it to the point where
She's
she
like,
won't let him in the room.
bring my maid. She can take care of me. I'll be fine with her. And then she won't let him in the room. She doesn't want him to see her. Every time he comes in to try and talk to her, she like hides and like gets under pillows. And then finally, oh God, Eliza, read the fucking room though. Her
Goddamn Eliza.
Maid, like, oh my God.
She's like, oh wow, you're a monster. Oh, you're like worse than Cyclops. She's saying to her face.
During all of this kind of stuff, though, like, Piers is still being a righteous dick, right? At one point, he said, but we're gonna get there, because he says, of course she's fine. She looks like a lobster, and she's twice as irritable. Like, he's saying all sorts of shit about her, right? At one point, though, she says in her, like, she thinks to herself, all the kindness was mortifying, worse than the moment when the whole ballroom gave her the cut direct. Honestly, she preferred Pierce's irritability. And he knows that.
Yes! Because he knows her.
She doesn't want the pity.
And she tells Eliza, I'm not marrying him. I'm not going to marry anyone out of pity. I'm not marrying anyone who pities me. And so the one thing he doesn't really understand is like just how deep this goes for her. Like he knows that she doesn't want pity. He knows all of that, but he doesn't realize that she doesn't think she's good enough for him anymore.
Unless she's beautiful, because
she's beautiful at all. Beautiful. Yeah, and his dad finally like gets it through his head that like you need to show her that it hasn't changed for you at all.
And then in this conversation, Piers and his dad have like they're coming back together.
Yeah. He says at one point he's like at a loss of what to say to his dad, and then he thinks, what would Lynette do? And he just holds his arms out, and his dad comes into and like they hug, and it's so wonderful.
Yeah, and like
then he gets
while they're
Sebastian.
hugging, he says, she's like my other half. My other bloody half, like some sort of joke that Plato made up. Like nothing I ever wanted. And then there she was.
Yep.
Oh, Eloisa! How fucking dare you!
Yeah. So he gets Sebastian to pick her up in all of her bedclothes at the ass crack of dawn and carry her down to the pool.
It is beyond that, though.
It's the best. Because Sebastian's so funny.
Because they go in, she ducks underneath the... Initially, Sebastian's like, I can't go into her bedroom.
No way.
And then he's like, Piers is like, we have to. Come on, let's do it.
No, and Piers is like, I'll be with you. He's like, still.
Yeah, well, so Sebastian basically, she goes under the blankets, and they're both like, okay, well, perfect. And so Sebastian picks her up, like, inside of these blankets. This was, oh my God, this was so funny and horrible at the same time, but also, like, Piers knows her. And so she's in this blanket, and Sebastian's like, are you sure she's still breathing? Piers prodded at Sebastian's cargo, provoking a new struggle. Furious sounds were coming from the bundle. It appears so. And then, like, they're just talking about this bundle, and then finally they get there, and he's like, just leave her on the flat rock over there. And now go away, don't come back. And so Sebastian, she's going to be walking back up there under her own will. And so Sebastian goes back and leaves, and then he's like,
he's gone, you can come out now.
And then she describes her, like, bursting from the, like, a desperate struggle, and then bursting from the blankets like a, like, angry bird or something like
And then she's yelling at him like a banshee. She's like, how dare you? What are you doing?
My God. And then she gets up and she's like, I will not swim, and I'm not interested in anything more intimate. In fact, she seemed to be shuddering a little at the very thought. That was annoying. In wordless reply, Piers reached out and gave her a shove between her shoulder blades. She hit the water with a shriek.
And then he's like, you better start moving or you're going to get real cold. Better start swimming around.
Well, then he jumps in and he pulls her close to him. And he hadn't, he hadn't held her close for days. And it was so, his heart clenched like the beginning of a cardiac attack.
Oh, he's so cute.
Doctor. And so they're swimming and they go back and forth, but she's weak. And so he helps her out of the pool. And then he keeps swimming, and she can't go anywhere because she's naked.
Right. And so
And
she sort of
so,
lays out like she used to.
but she's like wrapped up in the blanket initially, like a little, like she mummified herself, and then like she slowly starts relaxing, and eventually she's just like lounging in the sun, and he gets out of the pool like the dick he is and splashes her with his hair. And she's like squawking. Oh, this was so. He hoisted himself out of the pool and walked over to her, shaking his head so that cold drops flew all over her and made her squawk with annoyance. And just like that, he got his erection back.
Yep. Yeah,
They
and she's
love
like,
to torment each other.
and she's like, what are you doing? How can you be attracted to me like this? And he's like what? Like, you're still you. She's like, I'm hideous. And he's like, no, your skin looks different. But, like, it's scabbing off. You're still healing. The fuck is wrong with you?
Unlike you, I fell in love with more than your beauty. Your sharp tongue, for example. I adore that. I don't love you for your looks. If I were that way inclined, I'd choose Sebastian. Well, if I were that way inclined, I'd choose Nurse Matilda.
Yeah, and she's like, what?
And she's like,
he's like, creamy skin. Oh.
Well, he's like, these days she's looking better than you are. And then she snorts, and he says, dear me, what an annoying habit, snorting. I hope that darling Matilda doesn't develop the habit before I ask for her hand. Oh, wait, I think I already have a fiancé.
Oh my God.
I can't read all of the highlights from this scene. You take over, Melody, because otherwise it's just going to be me reading this chapter.
But basically, I think we do, because some of the phrasing is so beautiful the way it's actually written. But
yeah,
he's like, I did not fall in love with you because you didn't have red or pink skin. And like he starts rubbing a little bit on her skin, and he's like, oh yeah, you're at the stage where you're going to slough off a bit. Because she's been in the salt water, and then she was in the sun, and so he rubs with the towel like really, really gently, and like a top layer of dead skin comes off, and she looks a little bit pink underneath, but not like scary or whatever. And she's like, oh my God, is that what I'm gonna be like all over? And he's like, probably, yeah. And she's like, I thought I was never gonna look like that again. Like I was always gonna look this way. And he's like, well, if I knew that you were scared about something so stupid, I would have figured it out earlier and told you. But, like, you wouldn't talk to me. And he says, you shut me out. You wouldn't talk to me.
You lost faith in me.
Oh, God, you lost
faith. You loved me enough to play the fool, but when it came to it, you hadn't the courage for the slightest bit of humiliation.
Oh.
And she's like, but I do love you, but I can't be a duchess looking like this. I don't want anyone to marry me out of pity, and I can't marry you if I'm a horrible beast.
Beast, she says.
Is that the word you're looking for? That he says that to her, and she's like, oh my God, stop. And then she's like, I thought you'd be horrified, and like, I couldn't do that to you. I don't want to give you an ugly wife. I don't want you to marry me out of pity. And he's like, pity? I'm not known for pity.
No,
but like, I haven't the faintest hesitation about giving you a beast for a husband.
And she says, that's not true. You told me that you were not going to marry me. You threw me out.
You said that I was beautiful and eager, but that you'd rut other women, so I should just forget you. The ugly words hung in the air between them. You're right. That was a contemptible thing to say. Like, he does, like, he accepts. Like, he's like, you're right. I was horrible.
I was the biggest asshole. And he says, as soon as you left that window, I knew I had made a mistake, and I would have gone after you, but I couldn't leave my patience. I was going to come after you at some point. Oh.
And then she's like, you broke my heart when you threw... He's such a curmudgeon. She's like, you broke my heart when you threw me out. That made me miserable, but when I fell ill in the chicken coop, I realized that you loved me. There was a pause. The curlew was singing again, a bit farther off. I said that you love me, he repeated. I do, he said almost irritably.
Yeah.
And then he gets her so well. Like, he knows that she doesn't want to be coddled, though. Like,
yes.
And that's clear. Like, they're perfect for each other. And he's like, Well, so, like, what did you think would, like, so you didn't want to marry me because, like, now that you're circus material, you'll just throw me over? And what was supposed to come for there? You just, like, have dinner in your room for the rest of your life? And she's like, I kind of thought I'd hide.
Yeah, I was gonna hide forever.
And he says, you weren't supposed to want to hide from me, Lynette. You broke my damn heart by nearly dying, and then you broke it again when you threw me out of your room.
Yeah.
And then they start a little bit of kissy kiss, and he's like, he says, are you going to kiss me and make it all better? And she says, shut up, and then kisses him, and he says, I suppose now you're trying to seduce me the old-fashioned way, having lost your looks.
And then she says something about how she could only love a man who could carry her across the threshold and never got mad, never yelled. And he's like, actually, I did carry you from one room to another. Thank you very much.
And it's so perfect. And then at one point they're like kissing after the fact. Oh wait, no,
they
not
do
yet.
it on that rock, guys.
No,
That's what
not
she
yet.
means.
So he says,
"Oh,
you're not a so she says, do you mind marrying a peeling lobster? Because they've talked about marrying now. And he's like, you're not a lobster. Where the new skin shows, you're more like a strawberry, a red, delicious strawberry. And she says, Barry's my middle name. And he says, my Barry. And then he says, if I don't mind making love to you while you molt, would you mind making love to a man whose temper gets the best of him sometimes? And then they do the do. It's off page, but that's okay because we
Who
just
cares?
had the
Yeah.
most they fucked my heart, right? I've watched them fuck each other's hearts. I don't need with their
hear
beautiful,
that.
beautiful words.
you
Mhm.
weirdo."
Yep. They fucked each other's hearts with their word boners. We don't need to see anything more than that.
Yeah, it's okay. It's already been
then
very
afterwards-
intimate.
And after that, she's like, is my face scarred? And he's like, tell me the truth. And he says, not at all. You're no Queen Elizabeth. In fact, though I hate to tell you this, a little rice powder and the ducklings will be slabbering all over you again. And then he says, well, you're very lovable, and not because you're beautiful either, and not even because you're a delectable pink that I've never seen on a woman before. And then he says, I can't make love on this rock again. I hate to sound conventional, but my knees are scraped. Can we go home? I have a wonderfully soft bed. It's in the master bedchamber, which you have not yet seen, but which you might as well lay claim to.
You should lay claim to it. And she says,
when-
home.
And when they arrived, Lynette beamed at everyone, from Prufrock to the Duke. No one really noticed that her skin was strawberry pink, because the joy on her face and in her eyes was dazzling.
Oh! And then the
Did
epilogue.
I just quote the last, 4 pages of the book to you?
And
yes.
we loved
Yes,
it.
I did, listener.
And we loved it.
This book was so...
This book was so good. And, the epilogue is them with their kids later on. It's so good. This book is so good. I loved this book so, so much.
Yeah. Usually, so I usually find children epilogues unnecessary. This one was not. This was a very good epilogue because, you see how they've both grown. He's not a laudanum addict, but he also holds his temper better now, and she is
and their son is a little mini him. Their daughter is a little mini her. The son can't figure out why, if they already love us two so much, why are you having another one?
Third,
Yeah.
This was a really good child epilogue, and
it was. And one of my favorite things
book is go fucking read the book, okay?
Yeah. One of my favorite things about the epilogue, because I just heard, I've literally said something like this to my kids in a few different iterations, but he's like, why are you having a third one? And they talk about how, they're going to love this baby too. And then she says, that's what this family's really good at. We're really good at loving each other. And the kid's like, that doesn't make any logical sense.
That was illogical to John's mind. I did highlight that. This was illogical to John's mind. Dissecting people was what his papa did best.
Oh, it's so good.
And then he guessed the four of them could probably spare a little love for a baby, as long as it wasn't another girl. End book.
All right, Sabrina, what's your lady love?
My lady love is getting really into something that is not currently a hot commodity, which means short hold times at the library.
Heyo.
My lady love is short hold times at the library.
I love that. Yes.
Yeah, this whole series is available right now, but I did, in fact, take out the next 3 books like a crazed little gremlin
No,
monster.
that's great. You know what? You could wait 72 weeks for Fourth Wing, or you could check out something like this.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, and that's the thing is, like, that's one of the really nice things about getting into something that has been, like, you're late to the party, right?
Yes.
Like, people have been talking about Eloisa James for fucking
I
years.
love being late to the party. Have I told you that?
I do too, because I can just devour everything. I don't have to fucking wait. I'm like, oh my god, this series finished 4 years ago? Put it in my face hole.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. I have 2 lady loves again. So sorry, everyone.
Oh my god, just
this
breaking
book,
the law.
I know, right? This book reminded me of something that we're sort of working on in our house, because one of my wonderful children sort of has the, every once in a while, he's just like, sometimes he's just a glass half empty kind of person, and it's something that I see, like, from my childhood, and I can recognize it from, like, stuff my dad would say, and like I think I know where it's coming from, and it's something I've had to really, really fight hard against. And so reading this and having Sebastian and Lynette and a bunch of other people be like, you're choosing to be miserable.
Yeah.
Like, sometimes it really is just a choice you can make in that moment. And I've been reminding myself a lot of times, because I have to remind Ember, but, like, even if it's just the most trivial, when it is the most trivial thing, that's the best time to practice. Is like, oh, I can't go to swim class today because it was canceled. And you can be really, really sad about that. Or you can say, but that gives me a chance to do this other thing I have wanted to do for a really long time. Like, making those small choices in the moment is something I have to do, and I have to reinforce all the time. And this book was just a really good reminder of that. That, like, sometimes it really is just something you can reframe in the moment, and it will be better. You can choose joy instead of choosing misery.
Yeah.
And then my other lady
that's
love.
a reminder that I could use on the regular.
Yeah. No, really.
I'm really good at, like, a little thing just, like, derailing something. Like,
it's so easy to do.
So, like, if you don't start, I'm glad that you're doing that with the kids now, because, like, if you don't start when you're younger, it's so much harder to learn it as an adult.
It's so hard. Yeah, that, and, like, one of the things that I figured out not too late, but later than I would have liked in therapy, is just, like, your self-talk has so much impact on your overall outlook, on your everyday, on your every choice. And it was revolutionary when I realized that not everybody constantly talks terribly to themselves in their brains. Because that was what was modeled for me. That's what I grew up with. That's what I thought was normal. That's, and so trying to do that out loud for my kids is a really good reminder for me too, because every once in a while I'll get back into those things where I'm like, I'm just dumb, and I can't believe I did that, and all of this stuff just happens, right? So yeah, it's so hard, but it's really good and important. I don't know. And then my other lady love is finding out about the foundational single crochet stitch.
Ooh.
I've been crocheting for years, but I'm like the tiptoeiest hobbyist, you know? Like, I'll be like, I'm gonna watch a YouTube video to learn one stitch, and I'll make that stitch into a blanket. Like, maybe I'll do another stitch I know, but that's it, right? And so I always thought you had to start with a chain, and that one end of your project was just gonna be not elastic at all, and that was just how life was. And then I found the foundational single crochet stitch, so that both ends of your blanket can be squishy.
You can do them as half double crochet and double crochets as well.
Oh, shut your fucking mouth.
Mm-hmm.
Really?
I can show you sometimes. They're also on YouTube.
I mean, yeah. That's the only way I learned how to crochet. It's just YouTube videos.
One of these days, you and I are going to have the greatest HB retreat.
Oh my god.
And we're just going to fucking crochet and knit.
There's going to be crocheting. There's going to be knitting. There's going to be quiet reading times. There's also going to be, like, the...
Oh my god, there's got to be quiet reading. There's going to be a whole fucking room that is
only quiet reading.
Room.
But there will also be a full night where you may or may not imbibe, but there will be Korean-style karaoke in one room.
Yes.
Like, where you just do karaoke with your friends.
Yes.
That's going to be incredible.
Yes.
So we can Celine Dion our hearts out.
Every night in my dreams.
Oh my god, it's so good. Yeah, we got a lot of plans for an HB retreat. Ooh!
Oh, yeah. And, like, to be clear, like, I think that you and I should definitely have, like, you know, like, co-host things where we, like, sometimes, like, have, like, a weekend where, like, it's us. And
hell yeah.
But, like, we also have big plans for, like...
For, like, listener.
HB retreats.
Okay.
So, let's just tease that before we've really gotten into it. So, if y'all have ideas, feel free to, like...
Yeah, let a bitch know.
Salt daddy that all up in our heaving bosoms at heavingbosoms@gmail.com.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Wait.
What?
I have one more lady love.
Tell me everything.
Finding out that Suzanne Brockman is a fucking LGBTQ activist.
Yes.
Thank you, listener who emailed us. Goddess bless you. I haven't had a chance to watch the video that you sent us yet, but I mean, I will have watched it, and we should put it in show notes.
No, like, absolutely. I was going to read the email at the start of the episode, and then I forgot. We also forgot to do Patreon shout-outs. It's fine.
We'll see y'all next time.
See y'all next time!
Yeah. Well, to be clear, we weren't sure that... I mean, I was ending the podcast at the beginning of this episode, so, like...
That's... You know what? We've actually gone a step ahead. You know, we took 2 steps back at the beginning, and now we're 1 step forward.
Yeah,
it's good.
So we'll read that email and Patreon shoutouts next episode. Now that there's going to be a next episode.
Yeah.
So, keeping a badass.
And love yourself as much as you love...
There's too many. Fuck.
Are there? I can't think of a single one.
I'm like, beautiful words. Pushing your lover and the love of your life into cold water. Warm snuggles. Witty, angry banter. Love yourself as much as you love being on the brink and pulled back from the edge.